We're back, episode 125. Too much off-air content. We had to start rolling.
Yeah, and like I wanted to start this with a little stare down between me and Tony, but he opted out, so I guess I'm the winner of that one.
Yeah, he's getting soft as a coach. We need some like coaching stare downs. Like we need some like from the corners.
That'd be pretty cool.
By the way, shout out Glendale Supply. I actually just helped them out with the new website.
I saw that.
Yeah, they've reached out. Vince reached out a bit ago, and then you know how it goes. One person after next calls about the same thing.
Yep.
So, guys, we're here today. First of all, brought to you by Attack, best app. Tony, if you haven't downloaded Attack, go download it. Have all your athletes download it. It gives you coaching, mentality stuff, nutrition stuff, fitness stuff. You can climb a leaderboard. I kind of want to start a team. You can start a team on there. I kind of want to start Team Baschamania and then find some scrubs to compete against. Because I think that will motivate me. Like,
I had the app.
Yeah, get it back.
I got rid of the app because I was recruiting so much. I was falling so far down the leaderboard. I didn't want to look so bad.
I've been inactive also. So
I've only been inactive. Everybody knows if you listen to the show, I broke my toe, but now the toe's healed and I'm back. So we're gonna start attacking the workouts, logging the workouts. So download the app Attack ATAC. Follow them on social atac.app. It is an amazing app. So with everything with name, image, and likeness, Tony has kind of been.
Oh, that's what NIL stands for.
Yes. people get it confused with NLIs.
Yeah, exactly. Because I keep seeing NIL, and I'm like, I understand what this is, but what are the letters for? That's all right.
That's fair.
I feel silly now.
So Tony has been the Baschamania correspondent for NIL, and tomorrow or 2 days from now, July 1st, it's the Wild Wild West. So, and I've been hearing from some of the athletes on what their expectations are and what they're thinking. I put out an article on Rokfin that talks about it from my perspective. Wanted to get Tony on here today to talk about the coach's perspective. UNC has been pretty proactive and pretty pro brand, pro image. So, Tony, in the conversations we've been having, has tried to push the envelope to see what's possible, what's not. And there's a lot of confusion out there with this. Like, there was one guy who commented yesterday and was like, wrestlers are going to start looking like NASCAR cars. And I'm like, no, like you can't go wear a Penn State singlet and have 30 logos on it. That's not what this is. So I guess we'll kind of go through the rundown of this, and we'll start with what we know, what we don't know. And
so, what's funny though? You just actually brought something up that I was thinking about. Last year, the NCAA changed the rule where we could put a logo on the chest, and then you could put either a name or something on the back. I'm wondering if the rule is on the one on the front. So we had a patch on the front. Had to be everyone's the same, but the one on the back can be different. Now that you say that NASCAR thing, I'm wondering if kids will try and get away with putting a sponsor on their back.
Oh, that could be a game
the name
changer.
of it, not actually the logo, because you can put, like some people put equality, some people put social justice. It was more for the social justice movement.
Right.
I'm wondering how they're going to try and use that rule.
Nike.
Well, here's the first part on why
Baschamania, Bash Solutions.
I'm 100% down. I'll start sponsoring athletes if I can have Baschamania logo. But here's the thing. Let's say we put a Baschamania logo on Austin O'Connor's singlet next year.
Let's do it.
These athletes aren't allowed to have the school marker logo as a part of the deal.
Yep.
So because there's the UNC logo, you can't have your sponsor logo there. So I don't see how they could put anything on a singlet or any of the attire. And with the colleges being the gatekeepers, I imagine you're going to be in a position with Coleman of saying these deals can happen, these deals can happen.
Yeah, and that's where it's kind of getting tough is, like you said, there's so much misinformation out there right now, and there's so many different bills that are out there. The talks we've been having are if the NCAA one passes, and as you've seen or everyone's heard, if the NCAA one goes through, right now, everything has to go through your compliance. You get a deal. Let's say Baschamania brings a deal to a kid. The kid has to, before he signs the contract, submit it to compliance on some type of portal. Compliance can approve it. They can deny it. They can look and make sure they're actually being paid for work since it's not paid for play still. And then the kid signs and kind of go from there. The hard part's going to be, especially with all the questions being asked, is the coaches, our hands are out of it. Like we can't help solicit deals. We can't help work through deals. And I think that's where it's going to get tough. A lot of the education piece is going to have to come from the schools. It's going to have to come from kids reading, I guess, articles, watching videos, getting information, almost from secondhand sources, because the coach, we really can't be involved with it.
But will you have the ability to veto it?
That one we're not sure on. I'm not really sure how it's going to work, if compliance will come to us and say, hey, this is the deal that a kid has. What are your concerns or what are your thoughts? And then at the end of the day, we can give our input and then compliance makes the final decision. There really hasn't been – there's so many questions around like what's going to be allowed and what's not going to be allowed.
Right. And the one thing you were sharing with me was that the NCAA guidelines, they came out with some stuff right off the gate. No gambling stuff, no alcohol stuff. I'm sure stuff like porn, strip clubs, whatever. I'm sure they're not going to allow that. There's going to be a blanket just no.
What about cigarettes?
I don't think you're allowed cigarettes either.
Wow.
Since NCAA that has the no tobacco.
Right, that's true.
And that's the other one. Wrestling, you see all these kids chewing tobacco. They might try and go get a Zyn sponsorship or something. I don't think it's going to be allowed.
Right.
I know. And I think the other thing is obviously going to be the blanket conflicts, whether it's apparel, whether it's Gatorade, whether it's whoever. If the school has a deal, they're not going to allow for a conflict. I don't think that's as big of a deal as people think it might be. I don't think, Adidas is going to go after a Penn State kid and say, okay, Roman, we want to give you a deal, or whoever. I think it's going to be more non-apparel, but obviously the conflicts are right off the gate going to be the blanket no's, I would assume. And like you said, if there's something like, what do you guys think of this? I'm curious if it goes to the coach.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the one. We're changing every day. We're learning new things every day. There's been conversations about, and I don't actually know, I can't tell you 100% what the ruling is. But I think kids that live in, let's say, Florida, who has a state, they can follow the Florida laws, or there's some way that if you live in that state that has a name, image, and likeness law in place, you kind of fall under that, even though your school might not be in there. So we're still trying to figure out kind of all the layers to this.
Yeah, and one of the things that – go ahead, Cenzo.
I was just going to say, it seems like there's like a lot that goes along with it. And like, I don't know, I feel like we're still kind of unsure, but I don't know. After, like, it seems like you have a pretty good idea right now, but there's still like pieces of the puzzle that like we need to put together.
Yeah,
there's big.
And it's weird that like there are some things, like the next thing I was going to say is that it very clearly states that there can be no school marks, no school logos in a deal. So if you have a deal with AJ Ferrari, you cannot benefit from Oklahoma State whatsoever. You can't use his image in a singlet. He can't be in Oklahoma State gear. And as I said in the Rokfin article, I don't think that's big of a deal. You're not paying AJ Ferrari to put clothes on. He already doesn't wear clothes. Like these guys are already Gable, Roman, AJ. They're building brands outside of just the singlet. They're not football players that are in helmets. They're easily recognizable. So we do know a bunch of the guidelines, but it's going to be interesting come Thursday as deals start to get presented to the schools. I have a feeling you're going to start seeing some athletes go public with disappointment if a deal doesn't go through, or you're going to start seeing deals just on somebody's social feed, or, it gets tricky, like with what you were talking about of not knowing if a school can't promote that athlete's endorsement, what the athlete can post on their social, which I assume, like you said, it can't be pay for play. It has to be work. So a shout out is work. A social media post is work. So if Roman's posting something on his social, we'll know he got a deal. But if that means he can't use Penn State anything else on his feed, that'll be interesting. And I don't think anybody knows those things yet.
Yeah, and we talked about it, kind of on the phone. The big ones I have questions about is where does name, image, and likeness start and where does it end? Now, let's say Cenzo, your social media account, does that fall under name, image, and likeness? And now you're not allowed to post any of the highlights or the photos that Penn State took of you on your social account unless you pay them, because you're also using that to put your ads and your sponsorships. Right. Now, does your social not as big because you can't put any of your Penn State stuff on there and you kind of built your social off the Penn State brand? That they haven't really clearly defined some of those kind of rule sets. And then the other one that's been kind of thrown around is, now that you're on the coaching role, obviously Stanford Wrestling wouldn't be able to retweet or, post Shane Griffith if he got, a big sponsorship. Can you do it on your personal account? Or because you're hired by the university, do you still fall under that same?
I was wondering that myself,
So
actually.
it's kind of, there's a lot of questions, I guess, and a lot of people are still think they have all the answers, know all the answers, but it's going to be a learning process. Justin, you kind of touched on it. I think you're going to see brands come out right away doing things, and then either it's going to skyrocket or it's going to get pulled way back because they're going to realize there's really not a return on investment, or what is the return on investment?
I think they're going to look at wrestlers. My opinion is they're going to look at wrestlers like influencers. So if you're a small business owner or you're a big company, like in the Rokfin article, I put examples out of Gilman and Verizon, Burroughs and Bridgestone and Pampers, Milwaukee Tools, a number of guys have deals with, Nutridyne with Helm Rulis, Lull mattresses with Nolf. Like there's a number of brands. UCAN with Kinsar, and UCAN sponsors this podcast.
I think I DM'd Lull mattresses and they didn't get back to me.
Oh, we'll get you one.
Yeah.
The interesting part
too late.
When you talk about like the influencers.
Yeah.
Do you think, and you're a marketing guy, would you wait until like NCAAs come around or ACCs come around, and that's when you're going to do kind of your campaign and run your ad because there's more eyes on that guy at the time? And then
I think you might pay more. It really depends on what the structure of deals look like, because if it's a 12-month deal or a 6-month deal, I'm obviously going to structure it. Let's say I personally think it should be a 12-month deal. If it was a 6-month deal, you'd have to sign in like October, just before the season. So you're going to have it broken up into the college season. So if somebody gets a deal for October through the end of March, you're going to strategically say you owe me one post March 15th, one post here. I think e-commerce at the end of the year is going to be big, but I think it's also just going to be credibility. If you're a car dealership in somebody's hometown, if you're in Arizona, you put Roman on your car dealership, it doesn't matter. It has nothing to do. You're using their image. If you're getting a shout out, that's one thing. I think Lull Mattress doesn't care when Nolf posts. You are going to get more traction around a busy time, but you know what it's like. You've had a number of sponsors when you were competing, like trying to get posts out around when you're competing can also be difficult. And can you imagine if you're and that's when you're on the senior level, a bit more mature. These kids are dialed in before NCAAs. I mean, Cenzo, could you have imagined like the week of NCAAs making like posts like
I did, but like nothing like that. Like,
correct. Like for like make sure you guys go check out this coffee shop. They're the best coffee on the planet. Like an ad that you had to post. You have to think about it.
I would post like wrestling is fun and stuff like that. Just like stupid shit, like straight up. Like
I think people are gonna align with what their personality's like, because everybody's gonna be different on social. You're gonna have the people who just post a straight ad. And I think the bigger companies want that. Like when Burroughs posts something, or when Bridgestone uses Burroughs, let's say, that's as corporate as it gets. It's not like, hey guys, I really like this Peloton bike. You should go get one.
Hey guys,
whatever.
these tires are sick. Hey everyone, I love these tires. I'm just thinking about it before the Olympic trials.
I do think like
I got a question for you, because Justin, you're kind of touching on a little bit. At what point do we see, and Justin, we've talked about it some, the conflict between, I guess not really conflict, but the coach's mindset and the athlete's mindset kind of coming together. I know Penn State interviews were not big for you guys. You weren't in front of the camera a bunch, I guess, more to say. If you're trying to build your brand, at what point is the athlete like, no, I have to do this? Or
that's actually funny, because whenever Gilman first came here, he said something like that too. He's like, I've never heard or listened to like one interview from any of you guys ever. So we would have like media and stuff like that, but we just wouldn't say anything. I think some of our guys, like as like they went through college and got older, kind of realized that they should, build their brand up better, like Bo. And then guys like me who just like really, I didn't really care a ton. Like that's really just where I was, because this name, image, likeness thing wasn't even considered whenever I was in college. So it definitely took some time. But the guys on the team now, like on the Penn State team now, they're like completely different. They still maybe not, get in front of a camera as much, but they post a lot more than we did. And they're like more involved, a little more vocal than we were. So I think it's just, with the times, the sport's changing too. And I think the coaching staff at Penn State kind of is starting to understand that a little bit and kind of easing up on, don't talk to media. They're kind of like just letting it happen, but just be smart about it.
Yeah. And then the other part to that, Justin, because we know, you put a camera in front of some people. Let's say you put a camera in front of AJ Ferrari.
Yeah, he loves it.
What's going to be the NCAA's compliance or rule set if he does shout out his sponsors in an interview?
I know, because you find them like,
does it say, it says you're not allowed to, right? I can't remember, kind of looking back at those documents, what the rule is. Like, I don't think you can talk about your sponsors at an NCAA or you're at college event.
I think there's going to start being training before, or I think it'll be made mention, like let's say Big Tens or the ACC tournament. I think you're going to start seeing them say like, hey guys, you're not allowed to wear any outside apparel deals. You're not allowed to mention sponsors. I think that the most basic form of it is I think we could also end up seeing like blackout periods, kind of like the Olympics have with corporate sponsors, where you can only have Olympic sponsors. But if like the weekend of Big Tens, you're not allowed to mention sponsors. Like, I think this is going to continue to get rolled out. And I don't know if people are going to get fined, but I think there's definitely going to be things that happen that limit it. And I think the other aspect to this that not many realize yet is a lot of these athletes are going to have opportunities to build their brand on a bigger level now, whether it's with websites, whether it's with education outside of college, like taking branding classes, you had mentioned that UNC or one school brings people in to kind of help educate the athlete, like learning how to put money aside for taxes, learning how to set up an LLC to protect yourself on a liability basis and for write-offs. Like, people are going to have to really get smart with their brand, because you start making all this money, you get into trouble with taxes or whatever it might be. Like, these are things that nobody's thinking about.
Yep. And that, you kind of look at the NFL. What is it? Almost 70% of the players are broke after 3 years. I know there's a stat out there somewhere with that.
Jeez.
Just because it's true. Like, even us, when I started making money when I was getting out, man, I was spending it like crazy. You're not putting stuff aside. You're not thinking
what were you
about
spending money on?
Yeah, I'm curious about that.
The first time you get money, you're spending it.
On what, Tony?
Clothes. Kids.
Clothes.
But, we don't understand, especially when you become an RTC athlete, is these are all 1099. And the taxes that you're going to get hit at the end if you're not paying quarterly, if you're waiting till the end, especially if you're making a lot of money. And the other part of it is there's a lot of kids that are on financial aid. What we were hearing today is, once you hit X amount of dollars, it takes your Pell Grant away. Once you hit this amount of dollars, it might take financial aid away. So you might have a kid who's, on full financial aid going to school. Yeah, he thinks he's going to kill it and makes 20 or 30,000. Now it puts his parents or him in this bracket where all your financial aid's gone. Well, guess what? Now you're paying 50,000 to go to school, and really you just lost 20 grand.
That's nuts.
That's definitely something you got to consider and think about. If you're a financial aid guy, you have to, because that just shoot yourself in the foot right there.
Speaking of deals, real quick before we go on, Cenzo, we've
Okay.
got some friends. We've got a deal.
All right, so summer's coming. Are you ready to unveil your beach bod? Today's episode is R2 for men's full body grooming products. Tony, you got to get on this, bro. From the legends who introduced the greatest electric ball hair trimmer ever, Manscaped is now introducing the Ultra Smooth package. Justin, pull it up, man. A razor and formulation kit designed for the brave men out there who like to go to the skin when they trim their balls. This is just like, this is a crazy in-depth ad read. I think it was the same one as last time. Your new nickname is going to be the Bald Eagle. Yeah, it is. After using the Ultra Smooth package. Man, there's nothing worse than the ingrown hairs when you go to the skin, especially when it's summer bod season. It's time to get ready for a hot guy summer by going to Manscaped for 20% off plus free shipping. Promo code Cenzo, CENZO, 20% off, free shipping. Manscaped. Highly recommend it.
Yeah.
Get that summer bod ready. It's already,
yeah.
It's almost July.
Yeah. July is upon us. Get it for a gift. Get it for your father, your brother, your cousin. I know some of you use this. This was a very popular Father's Day gift. Tony, your kids probably don't get you gifts yet. But I mean, hey, if they did, if they got you an Ultra Smooth package or a Lawnmower 4.0, who's complaining? So go to manscaped.com. Use promo code Cenzo, CENZO. You'll get 20% off and free shipping, something you need in your bathroom.
Too easy. It's an absolute necessity. If you don't have like a trimmer or something like that, you got to get on that.
Yeah, get on that. So the other thing, Tony, that I want your opinion on with this NIL stuff is you hear so much talk around apparel. I think the apparel sponsorship market is saturated right now. I think for a while you had so many companies try to compete to get so many athletes. Now it almost seems like they're scaling back a little bit. And I don't think that Rudis or others are going to jump to sign a college athlete because you can't promote the kid in certain ways. You can't use their image with the school they're going to. They can't wear it likely when they're at a tournament, at an event. Like, I don't know what the risk is. And I don't think it's a big deal. But I think people are thinking like, oh, this kid's getting their own shoe. This kid's going to get their own this. Like, the colleges still dictate at most universities what apparel deal they work with. If you're a Penn State kid, you have a Nike deal because the school does. You don't get to go choose your own apparel sponsor and say, yeah, guys, I'm wearing an Adidas singlet and Adidas shoes today. Like, that ain't happening.
Yeah, and you kind of hit it on the head. I remember when I first came out, I was with ASICS, right? And then when I switched over to, full, I think it was Flips and Scrap Life, kind of when they were first starting up, ASICS was really starting to drop athletes anyways. And they weren't signing anymore. There's no return. The shoe's big, but when you talk about gear, T-shirts, I don't think a lot of people realize how hard the work is and how many shirts you got to sell to actually make a lot of money on T-shirts, especially if you're not getting them for free.
Right.
And you're buying the T-shirt. Yeah, you might get it at cost, but you still got to pay for the printing. Then you got to go out and sell them. Then you got to go and ship them. And at the end of the day, with 150 shirts, you probably make $2,000 total back.
Right.
You're not making this crazy money back with all your shipping costs, keeping everything organized, dealing with orders, dealing with customer service, especially if you're running it yourself and people getting pissed because you set the wrong thing or it just didn't work out right.
I feel like you're talking from experience.
Oh, he is.
A lot of experience. That's why when I saw people talking about it at first, and they're like, "Oh man, I made tons of money on my first apparel run." Well, yeah, you got everything for free. People aren't just going to give you everything for free.
Right.
We were talking about that with Bo the other day on here too. Just like people think it's way easier to make and sell apparel than it is. Like you got to put a lot of work in for that.
And it's got to be cool because if it's not cool, people aren't going to buy it, and then you lose out.
Then you lose money.
Sometimes you might just flop on one.
Right.
And let alone like the little issues you don't think about, like sizing. Like when I get BASCH Solutions gear, for example, I always end up like out of 2 sizes first. And then I end up with like, let's say maybe medium and XLs left, no small or large. Now what do you do? Yep. You can't really market something if you only have a few sizes left. You end up putting it on clearance or whatever, if you're selling it, like it's a lot of work. And for the companies, it's a lot of work. And if you can't have that athlete wholly, like if you can't have every ounce of them to commit to you, it's going to be really hard to get a return. And I don't think apparel deals are going to be the popular. I think, soaps, gym equipment, local businesses. I think you might see some of the bigger brands. Yeah, like a wrestler. Every wrestler has to, like, soaps are so important.
You should probably use soap
I'm waiting to see.
If you're a person, you should probably use soap.
Vincenzo, who's going to be the first K2 Root sponsor?
I don't know. I've been trying to get one of those for about a year now. So
David doesn't count as the first sponsor.
So not David.
The first Penn State athlete that they go and sign a deal with.
Dude, I don't think
Manville.
No one on the team really like drinks juice. I don't think.
Yeah.
Maybe like I bet Max Dean does. But I don't know. Like obviously, like Penn State guys, like Roman is going to be like your big. I don't even know how to explain it, but I'm
excited for Nick Lee's first sponsor.
Nick Lee told me he's going to be chilling for a little bit.
That's what a lot of athletes are going to be.
Yeah.
I saw Nick put up a post for the first time the other day, and I was like, he's trying to start building it now.
Yeah, he is. I think he's just having fun with it too. But I would like to see a good deal for Nick Lee. I don't know, maybe like Duluth Trading Company or something like that.
I think you can get really creative with where people are from and play to that. Like, I don't think it's going to be as much like where a student is right now. Like, I think it's going to be about where you're from, or like Willie was joking that Jacob Warner is going to get a strip club deal because he's a self-proclaimed ladies man. So I obviously don't think
that's the first I've heard of any of that. But I mean, I'm not super into Jacob Warner's life, so
they've been talking about it apparently.
That's funny though. I mean,
but it's like you're definitely going to see like AJ Ferrari's walking around without a shirt with glasses on. I could see him getting a sunglasses sponsor.
100%. He wears those inside.
I'm so jealous. I want a sunglass sponsor.
It's still early.
Yeah, he was like posted like Red Bull and stuff like on his story. So
and that's the other one where I'm trying to see is how they handle like these energy drinks. You know, are you allowed to use a Pepsi energy drink if the school is a Coke school? That's kind of where I'm interested to see how that goes.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of things like that we're gonna just have to look into.
Well, I think as athletes start, what's gonna suck is as athletes start to get somebody interested, reaching out through an agent or through Instagram, whatever, and the athlete takes the deal to their AD and say, "Hey, Gatorade's gonna sponsor me. Here's the offer," and the school says, "Nah, sorry." Like that is gonna put a kid on so much tilt when they say no. And I get it. And I get both sides of it. But when you have an offer, if somebody wants to pay you money and you have to say no and it's out of your hands, that is going to be a frustrating thing for some to deal with.
Also, like this is a kind of like a random thought, but like what's stopping, like say there's a big time donor at UNC and he just creates a company to pay all the UNC athletes or like all the wrestlers. Like what's stopping that?
I think that's some of the biggest worries are when you talk about like football and basketball and some of these other sports. Is Milwaukee Tools. He's a UNC alum.
Right.
There's a real company there, and there's a lot of real things our guys can do. We can't facilitate any of it. It has to be all done on their own. The hardest part is figuring out, are these athletes being paid for play, or are they being paid for work? Now, if there's work involved in that donor wants to do it, I don't see how they can tell him no. Those are the ones where it's going to come up to administration, what some of these state laws are, what the NCAA comes out with, and keeping an eye on. When July 1 hits, I want to see who already has deals lined up. Are people actually able to announce on July 1, or is there?
No, I don't. You got to figure that on July 1. AJ Ferrari might be able to. I don't know about Oklahoma. I know, like for Penn State, it's going to have to go to the administration and compliance first.
Yeah.
So if someone gives Aaron Brooks a deal on July 1 and said, here you go, here's your offer, and he says, I'm in, he's got to take that to Penn State. Now, Penn State could technically, here's the other thing. I don't know what their turnaround time is going to be. Do they have 6 months to look at a deal?
Yeah, especially now that it's right now. I bet you probably got 200 athletes coming to you with deals saying they got something that they got to vet through.
Right. So if you start taking time now to go through it, who knows? I think companies, knowing this is possible, I'm assuming you're going to have both athletes that already have some stuff lined up. Like if an athlete's talked to a small business and a small business says, yeah, I got you, let's talk July 1. July 1, they have a quick conversation and here's an offer. But now that it goes to compliance, I think that's going to be the big thing. Is there rebuttals? I also don't know who is going to look at the deal on behalf of some of these athletes. Do the Romans, the AJs, and the Gables, anybody else who might get a large deal, have an attorney ready to look through the terms and say, this isn't good, we should change this, you need to change this? Like, Tony, you know what it's like dealing with sponsorship, like contracts. Like, you need someone on your behalf to look at it and say, even when I get stuff like when Manscaped reaches out to us and say, here's your guys' contract. Okay, I send it to my attorney. Does anything look off about this? Am I good here? Should I, like, what do you think? Like, so these athletes are going to have to, and the rules say they can hire attorneys, they can hire marketers, they can hire these people. But I mean, that's not an easy thing to do.
And that's the other thing you touch on. You can look across the history of wrestling just with senior level athletes. A lot of senior level athletes have gotten in trouble because they don't understand contracts or deals they've signed, and they don't have the right people around them. But now, how much money do these athletes actually have to fork out up front when you hire your attorney, when you hire your agent, when you hire these people? They're not always going to do everything for free.
I know that BASCH Solutions isn't cheap either. These athletes that are about to come to us wanting a website, we're not cheap.
Not cheap. I know how expensive it is. I came to you afterwards. That stuff's not cheap.
No,
and if you're going to spend, I'm going to say these kids will spend $10,000 year one.
Yeah, easily.
I'm not going to realize that right up front, spending 10 grand. You got to make 10 grand back before you break even.
Have you talked to Austin O'Connor about this stuff at all?
They ask me a lot. Sherman asked me a lot. You know, he's a big one, and I think they're on the mindset of like, we're going to be millionaires right away.
Oh, you gotta bring them back to reality a little bit.
But they also don't know the ins and outs and what we've been talking about and what's been going on behind, you know, the scenes with administration and compliance and coaches. But also I wouldn't say there's a misconception, but we got to remember we're in the Olympic sport category too.
Right.
These big corporate sponsors are going to be going after the big time sports. Yeah, there's going to be good deals. There's going to be people that are local, want to help the program. An example I used is if you got a wrestler who has just as many followers as a football player and it's a local business and they can touch as many eyes, why would they not go the cheaper route and pay the wrestler instead of the football player who's going to be wanting big corporate dollars? So I think there's going to be opportunities.
I think it's also going to be about relationships.
Yep.
Like I saw your boy Austin was in the UFC octagon a couple days ago with Cormier. If him and Cormier had a little conversation about who some of Cormier's sponsors are, and he recommends, hey, you know, he recommends to his sponsors, hey, you guys should go after Austin. He's a great kid, great this, great that, great athlete. That's going to be a way I think a lot of deals happen too. I know even with UCAN, where we'll actually give him a shout out real quick. Super
Hey,
Starch.
shout out UCAN.
UCAN is the best. They started sponsoring this podcast. They have a Super Starch product that's phenomenal. Their protein, their energy. I absolutely love it. You don't spike. It's more sustained energy. Cenzo says they're not supplements. In my head, they're a supplement, and they're super clean because I don't have to take other supplements. And you can save 20% off UCAN with promo code Cenzo, CENZO, at ucan.co/Cenzo. Great product. Put this in your cupboard.
We like to be consistent. All the promo codes, Cenzo.
Yeah, promo code Cenzo.
I used some this morning. I'm about to take some in like, I don't know, 20 minutes here right before I leave. And it's awesome. Like, I'm going to go wrestle and I'm going to feel super duper good the whole time.
Yeah.
Just keeps you going for a while.
It's awesome stuff. And more wrestlers are using it. Like you're really starting to see this stuff pop up in a lot of places because people do love it. And I love that they're pouring into the wrestling community and that the wrestling community likes it. So go check that product out. And the reason I bring them up though, is like people kept telling them about this podcast and Kassar and others were making deals with them. And when brought up like, hey, maybe we should get a podcast, everybody started saying Baschamania. So they reached out, we had a conversation and it was a great fit. But that's how this sponsor came about. There was a mutual party. And I think as wrestlers have those MMA friends and connects where there are typically bigger sponsors, that could be a, hey, you should sponsor my buddy. And you see a lot, like you see the MMA branching out at Oklahoma State. You see guys all over the country training with MMA athletes. I think that's where you're going to start seeing deals too, is relationships, alumni. It's not just going to be this big corporate thing where people are filling out, like Verizon reached out through Gilman through his website. So Gilman got a request through his website. Hey, I'm with Verizon. Let's put you in a commercial. That happens. But there's also a lot of deals of, I know this person, you know this person, or alumni saying, like, I don't necessarily know how fast these things will happen, but I definitely see that happening for sure.
Yeah, and going along with that, the one I see happening is I think some companies are going to take risks too. With let's use Spencer Lee for example. They're going to want him once he graduates and want all his rights, and they're going to try and build. You talk about that relationship early on.
Yeah,
they might take those chances of throwing big time money or whatever it is, just to hopefully they have him locked down once he graduates and there's more floodgates that open. Or like an O'Connor, they know he's going to go into fighting. Heck, who knows? Maybe Bo Nickel calls him and says, hey, we want to do something with American Top Team because we want you to fight out of our camp once you graduate. So I think you might see some of those too. Just trying to lock these kids down before they actually, get into that open field.
Yeah, I had that thought of like, would a Rudis go after Spencer Lee because when he graduates, they want the shoe. So will they take the hit now? But being very familiar with the apparel business, it's hard for apparel companies to break even now when they have a shoe and everything else. So there's not that money like there is maybe in football or basketball, where it's let's waste a couple of years and gamble on, the massive payout. There's not going to be a massive payout for many of them.
There might be for Spencer.
Oh, for sure. But
he might be a massive payout guy.
Yeah.
But
there's definitely some guys that could be massive payoffs. Gable's one for sure too.
Right.
Yeah, do we see him in like WWE ads like already now if he still wrestles next year?
Right. Like that's what I was thinking too. Like, how is that going to work for him, especially if he comes back? Like, are you going to see him in WWE ads? Like, I know he wants to do it all, man. He wants to go into acting and all that stuff too. Like, is he going to just start promoting that like while he's still in school next year?
If I'm the WWE, I'm putting Gable on I'm scheduling a pay-per-view the night after NCAAs, and Gable's coming out in a singlet. What's he doing here? Like,
that's work. He's getting paid for work.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
I don't think the pay for play versus pay for work is a big deal, because the fact that if you have an audience, you can justify the fact that mentioning somebody, shouting somebody out, that is work in and of itself. You can't.
So wrestling isn't considered work.
It is, but you can't. That's play.
You can't be paid off of your wrestling status.
It's considered play by them.
Okay, it's considered play. Interesting.
Because it's a sport.
Well, yeah, of course. I only play wrestling anyway. So, yeah.
Well,
I don't. Yeah, that's like especially now. I only play wrestling now.
What about a match you versus Tony? You guys look like you might be about the same weight now. Could we see that on a card?
No, I got some pounds on him.
No, I don't know. I'm about up to 165, but I'm not.
Oh, not too much then. Not too much.
I'm not in that wrestling shape to be able to go with the top guys right now. So
see, I'm
this
like,
is assistant coach versus assistant coach. I don't know.
No, the assistant coach I want is Frank Molinaro. Like, that's the match I want. Put me and Frank on a card. Let's go.
I'm here for that. Tony, have you heard anything more about any like RTC level cards this summer? Are you guys playing anything?
We've talked about it. I think where you're going to run into issues that you didn't have last year because the whole COVID waivers for almost everything. If nothing's done soon, pretty sure once school starts, you cannot compete in outside like events unless it's a USA Wrestling sanction World Team Trials qualifier or something like that. If there's more than 5 guys from your team on it. So like there's a limit of how many college kids would actually be able to wrestle in the events. There's limits of when you can actually compete. Like a lot of those rules went away last year that no one really thought about because we didn't wrestle first semester that you were allowed to do that all first semester. It didn't affect your eligibility.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
A kind of different question I have for you, totally unrelated. Like just you and Coleman together.
Yes.
Like I always thought that was like just a super interesting dynamic.
Yeah, it's fun.
But yeah, like can you just talk about that a little bit because like you guys came from rival schools.
Mm-hmm.
So like I've always just
and Coleman recruited him after they wrestled, like the next day.
So it's crazy. It's like you said, it's 2 totally different mindsets, and I think that's why we've gotten the program to where it is so fast. Let's say at Penn State, you're going in to wrestle, you might be working with Cal, and you might not relate to him or you might not understand the situation, right? Well, now you go to Casey, who sees it the exact same way. Here, I might not see something one way, Coleman sees it the other way. We're going to be able to look at it from 4 or 5 different angles, but we're all trying to get to the same goal at the end of the day. And when we first got here and we were working together, just talking about a technique, I teach some, he teach some. Everything we did, like the end or the finish, was always very similar, but getting there or getting to that position was totally different. Just for a first example, is I wrestle from the inside.
Right.
He wrestles from the outside. But we both can get to a single. My single might get there different, but we finish the same. So we've been able to relate to a lot of different athletes. We're not forced. I wouldn't say forcing one style, but in a way you're forcing one style just how everyone was taught or how everyone thinks. I know when I was at Iowa, all the coaches at Iowa went through the same program, went through the same system. So you only know that system. Right. You can teach a lot of different things, but at the end of the day, you're always going to fall back to that system or way you were taught.
That makes a ton of sense. Yeah. That's kind of what I thought too. Just kind of what I figured from, you're both smart guys and see things like pretty clear. So that's just, I was a little like, interested. Yeah. And like, that's kind of what my plan is too. Like for like Stanford, me and Cole and Enoch, like we're all just kind of like, different backgrounds of wrestling too. And I think that we'll just have a ton of knowledge and be able to work together with that. So
yeah, and it's different on the fact of also, and this is another one to bring to Stanford, the way Cornell recruited, the way Penn State recruited, like the way we recruited Iowa was way different than probably how they recruited Oklahoma State. And you take what works best and you kind of mix them together.
I feel like Penn State and Iowa, it's just like, hey, come to Penn State or hey, come to Iowa. And the kid's like, all right, sounds good. Like you
want me done.
You want me to come? Sounds good. Like you don't need to do a whole lot.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, it's changed so much. And we recruited at Iowa, and you know what it was like. And the big part was we weren't recruiting very well from what everyone was saying. We were really stuck in the mindset, we're Iowa, you're going to come to Iowa, or we're going to find a guy to beat you. That's kind of changed.
What a mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of like it. I'm not going to lie.
And, at UNC, we're almost branding. Like we're branding the athlete to the school. We send so many graphics and so many different things and pictures, and we're trying to consistently be in front of them to brand our program, to almost brand them to think they're in the program before they even get here.
Interesting. Well, I'm going to take that from you for sure.
Go ahead.
And, maybe I can try to.
I'll tell you what, I've had to learn how to use Photoshop, all those, because you're not going to get. You're going to get some help, but for really what you need, all those resources are tied up in, football.
What are you using Photoshop for?
Put kids
make a lot of our recruiting graphics.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Jeez.
I think everybody should learn Photoshop. I really do. I think it's a great tool. There's not much unless you're in, even in construction, you need it in some way. Like
Yeah, so what's really helped me is we get the basic templates, that the school gets for like match day, some of those, and I just take the elements. So they still look similar, but then build different types of things off of them.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I'm going to have to mess with that and figure out what the heck I'm doing. So
yeah, we'll get you.
We'll get
you a
there.
Photoshop license.
I'll get there, man.
You can start making graphics for Baschamania.
Let's go.
You worked with Affinity Design?
No.
I like Affinity Design better than Photoshop. I'm not very good on there. I figured out Affinity quicker, so that's the one I use.
When I started with marketing and websites and everything, it was like 1999, and I only evolved so much until about 2003, 2004, and then as I started hiring people, they were getting the new stuff. I just continued to use the same crap if I need to do something. But a lot of it, I send to my guys. Like, I don't care how you do it, just get this done. Yeah. I personally use Photoshop if I want to put a graphic out, if I'm doing something. But
I'll take a Snapchat and then I just like use my finger and like draw on it. Like that's the best I can do.
I'll tell you what, I was so bad in the
beginning. We're working on it. Everything's a work in progress. That's it.
Yeah, it's all work in progress. Speaking of works in progress, Cenzo's got to get to practice. Tony, I know you got some stuff to do. So thank you both. This was like a last minute thing. We wanted to do this, but as Tony gets more details and as we're hearing stuff, we wanted to try to wait to bring as much value and entertainment. So we kept kind of pushing this off, but that's the name, image, likeness, NIL talk today, not a letter of intent.
No, hey, just whenever a Stanford and UNC guy go at it next year, you're catching a stare from the corner.
All right.
I might have to come out for that one.
Justin?
What?
By the time you release this, the rules could change tomorrow.
This will be released in 2 hours.
Will the rules change in the next 2 hours?
No, but we might learn more.
We might learn more, or NCAA might establish a legislation where that's the one that everyone's going by.
It'll be like JB and Martinez. We like spend a whole episode talking about that match.
I was just thinking about that.
And they canceled it like an hour after we released the episode. We're like, oof.
I was literally about to tweet out like the second tweet to push the podcast. Like, all right, guys, here what Imar thinks about the match. And then it's Burroughs Imar canceled. And I'm like, So we're not letting that happen. We're getting this out like right now. So you guys go run, do your thing. I'm getting this to my guys who need to get this live. That's 125. I'll talk to you guys later.
Appreciate it. See you guys.
Thanks, guys.
And the beat goes on.